So the question that came up is desire the cause of all suffering? And the person who brought the question up mentioned that the Buddha described desire as the cause of all suffering. So in our yoga practice, should we be focusing on desire as the ultimate thing to get rid of? Now, desire actually plays an interesting role in the practice of yoga. So one thing is that without desire, we wouldn't take up the practice of yoga at all. There actually has to be a desire to bring about a change in our life. There has to be a desire for something like coming to know truth, or attaining peace, or attaining liberation, or wanting to improve our life in some way. Otherwise we wouldn't take a first step onto the mat. So desire has to be there, and actually desire has to be quite intense. If we're going to make serious progress on the path of yoga, then that desire for liberation, desire for true knowledge, desire for ultimate realization actually has to be quite strong. Otherwise, when things get difficult and we actually have to start facing our fears, we would just fall off the path. So desire has to be there, and if we're to continue with the journey over the duration, desire has to be quite intense. Now, people tend to have a particular amount of spiritual desire. This is something called bhakti. People tend to have a certain amount of bhakti when they come to the path. That bhakti can change. The amount of spiritual desire that someone has can intensify as we practice. It can also diminish as we practice. There's no rhyme or reason, and that will depend on that individual person's karmic matrix, or their unique matrix of obstructions. So we come to the practice with a certain amount of bhakti, a certain amount of spiritual desire. It can intensify, it could diminish, or it could just remain the same. It's something that's quite hard to fake. You can't fake spiritual desire. If you haven't got it, you haven't got it. It's not that easy to cultivate deliberately. It's not easy to cultivate a longing for the divine, a longing for peace, a longing for liberation. It tends to be there if it's there, it tends to rise if it rises, fall if it falls. So we're sort of at the mercy of that to a certain extent. So that's spiritual desire, bhakti, and it's actually one of the most important aspects of our journey. If we can nurture it, then it's good to nurture. And it can be cultivated by doing things like making a small altar or shrine in the corner of your room, just a small table, putting pictures on it, photographs, images, things that stimulate spiritual desire for you. Maybe lighting a candle every morning, every evening, lighting some incense. And it just creates a reminder of our spiritual ambitions, of our spiritual goals, of our spiritual desires. And some people actually make this into a spiritual practice, and in some cases even their primary spiritual practice. And so they would deliberately invoke states of spiritual yearning, states of spiritual longing, envisioning someone who represents the qualities of liberation for them, represents the qualities of love or compassion or peace or freedom. And they might imagine themselves being with that person. And so this is bhakti yoga practice. And sometimes people sing songs in praise of the divine in praise of the person or the people that represent those qualities for them. And people can even enter very deep trance states where they're simply longing, they're simply yearning for the divine. So this is spiritual desire taken to the extreme. There's a famous teacher called Ramakrishna, and his object of worship was the Divine Mother. And he had a statue of the Divine Mother that he would worship. And he would enter these states of very profound longing, very profound devotion. And he would be in altered states of consciousness. He would be in samadhi states. But samadhi states with bhava, with feeling, with emotion, with longing, with spiritual desire. So desire is not actually the cause of all suffering. It's actually very important on the spiritual path and can be taken to very high levels, very refined levels of spiritual practice, leading all the way to liberation. So what was the Buddha talking about when he said that desire is the cause of all suffering? So he's also talking about something there that is really important, but he's talking about much more mundane desires. But these much more mundane desires agitate the mind and do not lead to a state of peace. So we actually have to navigate quite a difficult journey. On the one hand, the journey doesn't work without intense spiritual desire, longing for freedom, liberation, love, joy, compassion. But we also have to bring our mind into a balanced and calm and stable state where mundane desires are no longer operating. And eventually, imagine we can manage to do both of those things. We've got our calm, peaceful state of mind and simultaneously an intense longing for the divine. Eventually, both of those have to come together. Both of those have to come together. Or you could say we have to transcend both of those. If we're always intensely longing for the divine, then we're always wanting something we haven't got. Yeah. So we have to be able to ultimately transcend both mundane desires and even high evolved spiritual desires. Transcendence takes us beyond all desire. So it's a game we have to play on the spiritual journey, and it's a balance that we have to get right. We have to have the right amount of fuel or bhakti to take us the whole length of the journey, but we also have to have the right amount of stillness, peace, and ability to let go of mundane desires, and then eventually be able to transcend all of that, leave all of that behind. Bhakti doesn't last forever, and eventually we transcend even that.